Coming to firewall, what is firewall? Firewall can be a system, it can be a device, it can be a software, or it can be the combination of these to place them between trusted boundary and untrusted boundary to mitigate and stop any sort of attack and unauthorized access. So in firewall we create policies, but keep in mind nowadays firewall can do many jobs, not only creating a policy to allow and deny traffic. Here you can doing routing as well. You can deploy firewall as a layer 2 as well. You can deploy firewall as a layer 2 as well, as a layer 3 as well. You can make policy in firewall. You can do routing. You can do netting. Many things can be done in firewall nowadays. But this is the basic functionality of firewall, to allow or deny unauthorized access, to allow or deny traffic based on your policies, whatever your company policy organization. And it monitor and checking incoming and outgoing traffic per policy, whatever you created. Firewall, as I told you, it can be hardware, it can be a software, it can be both, it can be a virtual, it can be a cloud base. And then filter the traffic. Firewall are categorized in 3 generations. First generation, second and third generation. First generation was packet filtering firewall, the oldest method. Second generation was application, a bit good one. And then the third generation is stateful firewall, or next generation firewall. So firewall, fire and wall, means a wall which has a fire to protect you from any sort of attack from outside. This is the just definition. And the simplest definition is firewall to check good data and bad data, to allow or deny per policy you configure. But in today world, firewall can do behind these things many things they can do, which we will discuss a bit later. Top 5 firewall is Palo Alto firewall, FortiGate firewall, Checkpoint, and Cisco Firepower. Okay. First type of firewall is stateful firewall. Stateful, which keep the state connection detail, who is going out, who is coming back. They keep record of everything. This is called stateful firewall. Like in UK, when you go out, they keep record how many people go out and how many people in. They have a full detail of everything. The same as stateful firewall. Stateful firewall, what they do? When somebody go out from inside, so return traffic will be allowed automatically. It's strange, yeah? How they know that this is the return traffic? Just creating a new table which is called stateful table, session table. So whenever somebody go from inside, they go out to bring some bread or milk something, and when they go out from home, so when coming back, security guard will not stop them, because security guard know that this guy belong to this house and I'm doing job with this guy. He just go out to bring some bread and milk. So they will create the detail like a source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port, TCP, session and flag, sequence number, acknowledgement. This is called state table. And this is a good thing. So when somebody go out from their home and they have a security guard, so when they come back, security guard will not stop them. Checking these detail. And normally I am giving example to my student when I was in UK. So when we go to club, in Manchester, there are many club. So when you go inside, so on the door, they will stamp your hand, on the hand, there will be some sort of stamp they will put. And when you pay them, you will stamp and you can go inside. But when you want to smoke and come outside, because smoke is not allowed inside, So when you come out for some reason, and when you go back, security guard will just check by torch. If the stamp is there, they will say, okay, you can go inside without any permission and anything. How? Because they have a state table. So this is called stateful firewall. They keeping, but if a new person came directly and coming to the club, they will stop them, security guard. No, they will say, no, you don't have a stamp. You already don't have a connection detail. It means you are the first packet to take a permission. Then you are allowed. Otherwise, you are not allowed to go inside. This is called stateful firewall. Coming to stateless firewall. Stateless firewall not keeping any record. It means if you go out once from your home, even if you come back, security guard will ask you. But here I will not give you a home example, because in home, security guard already know you. But I will give you a 5-star hotel, either a big organization, because the security guard don't know you. Every time when you enter, they will check your ID. They will say, no, you need to take permission. If you tell them, no, I was just smoking, no, I forgot my ID, will say, no, don't fuck with me, you need to show me the ID, then you can go inside. That's it. This is called stateless firewall. Every time you need permission from inside to outside and outside to inside, and there is no such record and aware of any pattern of data. So this is totally opposite of stateful firewall. 2-type firewall. Okay, now third type of firewall is packet filtering firewall. This is just like a typical ACL, access control list, standard ACL, extended ACL, dynamic ACL, time-based ACL, whatever name-based ACL, web filter ACL, all these ACL type of firewall when we configure in router on old days. So this is called packet filter firewall. But this packet filter firewall just checking by source IP, destination IP, source port and destination port. That's it. It means you are just going up to layer 4 and layer 3. Do you think this can be in today what is this a good practice? No. Anybody can spoof the source IP, which we done it in layer 2 attack. Anybody can do port hopping attack. Again, you can go inside. Suppose they say 10.1.1.1 is allowed to 8.8.8. I will change my IP to 10.1.1.1 and they will allow me, even though I am not allowed, because I can spoof my IP. So packet filter firewall is the oldest method to allow the traffic based on layer 3 and layer 4. Fourth number, proxy firewall. It play a role of proxy in the middle. Traffic will come from your LAN to this proxy firewall. Behalf of this LAN user, they will generate traffic and will send to the google.com, either Facebook, whatever. The traffic don't know you, this client. They will send the traffic to proxy and proxy will forward to, just like a proxy which we done in classes. But a single point of failure. There is some advantages. They keep the cache as well. So if you go next time to Facebook, it will be faster because they have already the detail. So we can configure a firewall as a proxy firewall as well. Okay. Then there is application firewall. So now rather than to use a source IP and destination IP, they are using application. Rather than by port number, they are using application name. Rather than 53, this is DNS. Rather than 25, it's using SMTP. It's okay. It's better than packet filter firewall rather than to use 53 and 25. But do you think it's a secure way? No. Again, I can spoof the source IP. It's okay. They will allow me for DNS. Even though if I'm cannot hoping, but at least they can allow me for DNS as SMTP. So a bit better, but not the full-fledged solution. Application-based firewall. Then personal firewall. When the firewall are installed in your system, your personal device, laptop, desktop, whatever, even there is by default firewall as well in your systems. If you type window firewall, there is Windows firewall as well. To allowed and denied traffic, this is called personal firewall, which is very limited. And Linux as well. Linux is IP table, and also there is also firewall. Then transparent firewall. When you deploy Cisco SA firewall as a layer 2, then we call them transparent firewall. It's checking the things based on MAC addresses rather than IP address. So this is called transparent firewall. So you can deploy firewall as a transparent. Same concept in transparent firewall, we have V-wire firewall, either virtual wire. When you bridge two different bridge network, so this is what we do in Palo Alto firewall. The same concept like a transparent. Then we have traditional network firewall, like using ACL, based on source IP and destination IP, source port and destination port. So this is traditional. Again, it can be spoofed easily, the IP address and port. Then also you can make Cisco router as a zone-based firewall. It's better approach, better than these routers, these firewall. You create a zone. You can make Cisco router as a firewall as well. If you have a small organization, small office, you can make Cisco router as a zone-based firewall as well. To create a zone and then you allow traffic from one zone to another zone, you need to create a policy. So, but it's also not a full-fledged solution to provide you in each and everything. So this is zone-based firewall. Then when you configure firewall in cloud, like a firewall as a services, security as a services, just like a software as a services, infrastructure as a services. The same as when you deploy firewall in cloud, so it's called cloud-based firewall, either firewall as a services or security as a services. And when you deploy firewall virtually, like in VMware and any other virtualization environment, then we call them virtual firewall. Last but not the least is UTM. Unified Threat Management is the abbreviation. What is UTM? Basically, UTM can provide you each and everything just like a next generation firewall. What is next generation firewall? We will go a bit later to next generation firewall. UTM can provide you each and everything, whatever a next generation provide you. Like it can provide you packet filtering, proxy, IDS, IPS, protection against malware, application control. It can provide you web filtering, content filtering, antiviruses, anti-spam. It's providing everything like a next generation. URL, IAM, antivirus, quality of service, proxy. It's a good thing, by the way, UTM. I will come back here, but go to the last one is next generation firewall. What is next generation firewall? Whatever firewall we discuss up to this point till UTM, all the features are included already in next generation firewall. Beside all these firewall facilities, whatever we discuss from top to UTM, all the traditional firewall are already added in next generation firewall. But next generation firewall basically offer you three things: app ID, content ID, and user ID. Next generation firewall checking everything by application, not by port. Even port is also available there. Next generation firewall not checking by IP address, by source IP and destination, but Also checking by username, but user uh, IP is also available there. And the last thing is content ID. It will check each and every packet for viruses, spyware, and everything, IPS, IDS, URL filtering, all those things. Altogether, we call them content ID. User ID, content ID, and app ID. Do you think this enough? This thing is also available here. Is everything is here as well? Then what is the difference? Second difference is deep packet inspection and the speed. So three things: content ID, user ID, app ID, deep packet inspection, and speed to do everything at once. Let me explain you what is deep packet inspection. Normally I give an example of deep packet inspection like a DNA test. UTM will do and rest of firewall will do X-ray, normal X-ray, which everything is not visible. Suppose if you have some big issue in your head, normally X-ray will not show you each and everything. Maybe sometime the X-ray will work. But if you have some hidden stuff, so you need DNA, either what is called CT scan. So deep packet inspection, next generation firewall will do a DNA test, which you cannot bypass them. But X-ray in this case, CT scan can be wrong. But DNA test is 100% accurate. So this is called deep packet inspection. Okay. What else? App ID, user ID, and content ID. All these are provided by UTM as well. But UTM will take time. And normally again I give an example, my home country and UK. When you go in our home country to open a bank account, so what you will do, they will say, okay, bring your identity, bring your passport, bring two person who know you, sign this application from 17 grade officer, then bring it back. Then they will send you to the manager, manager will sign, then they will say go to that counter, then they will say go to another counter, then they will say okay, make a photocopy, then you will go back outside and then make a copy, then you will come back. Anyway, in this way, bank account when you open in Pakistan, it will take 2 days to open a bank account finally, to do all the job. But when I was in UK, I was expecting the same thing. But when I went to bank account, Barclay Bank, when you go there, they say okay, have a seat here, and they take everything, passport and identity card and whatever at their time, and they say okay, you sit here, thank you very much, and they do photocopy and everything, they are done it by self. And after 10 minutes they bring a form and they say sign here and your bank account will be ready in 10 minutes and you can take your card, and that's it. So 10 minutes and 3 days. This is called next generation firewall and UTM. UTM take time. When the packet arrive, it will check for URL filtering. Then they will forward you to the manager. Manager will forward you to class 17 officer. Then they will say go to make a photocopy. Then they will go to quality of services. Then go to proxy. And the traffic will travel like one to another. And end of the day they will say okay, now you are clear. But in next generation firewall, they will do all these things but at once. So this is the difference between UTM and next generation firewall. Normally in interview they're asking what is the difference between UTM and next generation firewall, and then the second question they ask you what is next generation firewall, what is the difference between the other firewall and next generation firewall, whatever is provided by another firewall, so what the hell is providing by next generation firewall. Then you have to explain them that next generation firewall is the combination of each and everything, but it distinguished by three different things: app ID, user ID, and content ID, and the deep packet inspection plus the speed, which I told them speed, like you can say that the processing speed. Last but not the least, where we can deploy firewall. Firewall can be deployed inside your organization anywhere. It can be in data center, it can be in perimeter, it can be in edge, it can be internally, it can be externally, it can be between the two different boundaries. This is also another question in interview where we deploy firewalls. Firewall can be deployed anywhere you want if it is required. Normally we deploy them in data center and in edge, which we call them perimeter firewall.